There is a place in Indiana where time doesn't just slow, it fractures. A quiet patch of land nestled deep in Park County, where the air smells of rusted iron and river fog, and the sound of footsteps often belongs to no one at all. Billie Creek Village was built to preserve the past, but something else was preserved with it. Something older than the timber cabins and covered bridges. Something hungry. The locals speak in hushed tones about the lights that flicker in empty rooms, the child seen peering from the schoolhouse doorway, and the preacher's voice still echoing from the chapel long after his death. The village does not sleep. The soil remembers. They say a shadow walks the church at night, its eyes glowing like embers. Some say it was awakened when the graves beneath the chapel were disturbed. Others believe it never left. Call it a ghost. Call it a demon. It doesn't care what name you give it. It only wants you. Billie Creek was meant to be a museum of memories, but it has become a prison for the forgotten. And once you walk its crooked paths and pass through its bridges, something watches and waits. This is the story of the village that time could not bury, and the things that walk there still. I know many of you like to fall asleep listening to my content, which I greatly appreciate. But would you also like to burrito yourself in a super nice blanket while you do so? Now, I will warn you, these are a little pricey, but we went with quality over quantity, and the quality is ridiculously good, you guys. I have a few designs I'm going to be launching on my store as of this video, and a few different sizes that you might want to check out, and the prices will vary based on size. This is the blanket that I received here, and it completely burritos me and covers my toesies, which I'm 6 foot, and typically regular blankets, besides like bedding ones, don't usually do that for me. Usually I have like half my body uncovered, so it's really nice actually. So if you'd like to support the channel and be super comfy in a nice quality blanket, consider grabbing one of these today. And they are also very much Luna approved. Thanks. To tell this story properly, let us first start at the beginning. I want to give you an overview of the unique history and buildings that exist there, and perhaps it'll help explain why things are the way they are today. Billie Creek Village began as a bold preservation project in the 1960s, born from the pride and vision of Park County residents. After the success of the county's first covered bridge festival in 1957 and a popular Maple Fair in the 1960s, locals sought a way to keep visitors coming year-round. Their solution was unprecedented: build an entirely new town using old buildings. By 1964 to 65, a plan was underway to relocate historic structures from around the county to a 70-acre site near Rockville, Indiana. Volunteers and the nonprofit Park County Inc. worked tirelessly to acquire and move heritage buildings, from homes and barns to a general store, and even covered bridges onto the property. In 1969, the new Old Town opened to the public as Billie Creek Village, named after a nearby stream called Williams Creek, locally nicknamed Billie Creek. At first, it featured only a handful of exhibits, but the collection grew steadily through donations and relocation of structures over the following decades. The village was envisioned as a living history museum, a place where visitors could wander boardwalk-lined streets and step back into the late 1800s and early 1900s. Dressed interpreters demonstrated period trades and crafts, and school children came on field trips. and annual events like Civil War reenactments and old-fashioned ice cream socials brought the town to life. By the end of the 20th century, Billie Creek Village had become a historical gold mine, boasting over 30 preserved buildings and hundreds of artifacts, truly a time capsule of rural Indiana's past. Today, Billie Creek contains 38 historical buildings and structures, each with its own story. These include rustic log cabins from the 1830s, quaint Victorian-era shops, churches, a one-room schoolhouse, and even the former home of an Indiana governor. Most of the structures were painstakingly disassembled at their original locations and rebuilt on site, maintaining as much authenticity as possible. For example, the Beeson de Planty cabin, built around 1830, still stands without a single nail in its poplar wood frame. The modest white St. Joseph's Catholic Church, built in 1886, and a small Baptist church, once rang with hymns, now watch silently over the empty lanes. The governor's house, a simple one-bedroom cottage, belonged to Joseph A. Wright, the 10th governor of the state of Indiana, from 1849 to 1857, who settled in Rockville as a young lawyer. Governor Wright's wife, Louisa, suffered reoccurring malaria and could bear only one child. They adopted a daughter in 1832. Fittingly, their humble home reflects the hardships and hopes of an early Hoosier life. 3 historic covered bridges grace the village and its immediate surroundings, giving Park County its nickname, Covered Bridge Capital of the World. Each bridge predates the village itself and was moved here to be preserved. Notably, the Billie Creek Covered Bridge, built in 1895, stretches over the creek at the village entrance. Just upstream is the Beeson Covered Bridge, built in 1906. And to the south, the Leatherwood Station Bridge, built in 1899. These weathered bridges of timber and iron once echoed with horse-drawn wagons. Now they lend the village a truly bygone atmosphere. Other attractions dotting the grounds include a working blacksmith shop, a print shop, a maple sugar camp, and even the entrance to an old mine. In fact, at the far edge of the property lies the White Star Mine, a real United Mine Workers strip mine that operated from 1931 to 1939, a surprising remnant of more modern history tucked within the pre-1900s village. One of the most cherished buildings is the general store, the social hub of the village, then and now. Estimated to have been built between 1850 and 1860, this white clapboard store originally stood in Annapolis, Indiana, a thriving Quaker community in its day. When the railroad bypassed Annapolis, the town faded. The old store was moved to nearby Bloomingdale and passed through several owners before finding new life at Billie Creek in 1968. Another centerpiece is Dr. Rice's office, a small Greek revival building where Dr. Harris J. Rice treated patients in the mid-19th century. Dr. Rice was born in 1823 and studied medicine in Philadelphia and returned to Indiana to practice, eventually taking over his uncle's medical office in 1857. The one-story doctor's office he used was built around that time on Rockville's Market Street. In the 1860s and 70s, it was updated with fashionable touches. This very same building was later saved and then brought to Billie Creek Village. Inside, one can see an exam table and apothecary jars as they might have appeared in the 1800s, reminding us of an era when country doctors mixed their own medicines and often doubled as dentists. The village schoolhouse is another beloved landmark, a classic one-room school. It dates to 1913 and represents the type of rural education common over a century ago, painted rustic red with a bell tower on top. The school once rang with the laughter of children, and some say it still does in ways that defy explanation. Dozens of other structures enrich Billie Creek Village's story, each transplanted from real communities. Walking through the village is like strolling through an encyclopedia of Indiana vernacular architecture, every building labeled and preserved. But alongside its nostalgic charm, this empty town has gained a much darker, spine-tingling distinction in recent years. While Billie Creek Village flourished through the late 20th century as a living history park, it faced significant challenges as the original founders and volunteers aged. By the early 2000s, attendance had dwindled and maintenance became difficult without a new generation to carry the torch. The once bustling town grew quiet, and in 2005, the site even narrowly avoided demolition when financial woes and dwindling support threatened its existence. A last-minute effort to save the village's historic structures from being torn down or left to rot. However, the reprieve was temporary. A few years later, operations went completely dark, and Billie Creek Village entered a dormant period. Matters came to a head in 2012 when the entire 70-acre property was put up for auction. With bids reportedly in the $800,000 to $1.5 million range, there was talk of selling the site off in pieces if no buyer could preserve it whole. It was a tense moment for historians and fans of the village. Fortunately, in summer of 2014, a group rallied to reopen Billie Creek Village, even hosting a grand reopening celebration on August 10th of 2014. For a brief time, hope was restored, but this revival proved short-lived, and the village closed to the public again not long after. The empty streets and quiet buildings seemed destined to decay, frozen in time. Finally, in April 2022, new lifeblood arrived. A local entrepreneur and history enthusiast named Greg Larson purchased operational management of Billie Creek Village, determined to return it to its former glory. Larson assembled a team to repair structures and event planners to animate the town with activities once more. Under this new management, Billie Creek cautiously reopened for periodic events, tours, and even overnight guests. It has since been integrated again into Park County's famous Covered Bridge Festival each October and is once more welcoming school groups in the spring. In an unexpected twist, however, one of the biggest draws bringing visitors back has nothing to do with traditional history at all. It's the ghosts. As Larson and others soon found, the stories of unexplained happenings around Billie Creek Village had taken on a life of their own, offering the site an unusual second act as a paranormal destination. Despite being a fabricated town that's barely half a century old, Billie Creek Village is steeped in ghost stories. Locals and visitors alike have long whispered that the past inhabitants of these historic buildings may have followed them to this new location. Over time, the village gained a reputation as possibly one of the most haunted places in Indiana. According to Ghost Hunts USA, a national paranormal tour group, paranormal activity reported at Billie Creek includes apparitions, shadows, footsteps, and voices. These claims are not just hearsay. Numerous independent ghost hunters and teams have investigated the site and come away convinced something otherworldly resides in this silent town. Common reports of ghostly phenomena at Billie Creek Village include shadowy figures. Dark silhouettes are frequently glimpsed wandering between the buildings, or standing just directly out of sight. Witnesses often catch these shadow figures in the corner of their eye, fleeting shapes that vanish when one tries to look straight at them. On occasion, a person will see a figure head on, an indistinct person strolling across the empty village lane, seemingly absorbed in the errands of a bygone era. These specters do not approach or acknowledge the living. Rather, they roam, as if Billie Creek were still the hometown that they remember. Their silent presence lends the area an uncanny feeling of being occupied by invisible villagers. People have also reported phantom footsteps. Perhaps the most frequently experienced phenomena is the sound of these footsteps echoing over wooden porches and across the covered bridges when no person is there. Many have described the steady clank of heavy boots or the patter of children's shoes moving along the boardwalks and bridge planks. Eerily, the covered bridges amplify these sounds. Inside the tunnel-like spans, the disembodied footfalls reverberate loudly, as if an unseen traveler were crossing alongside you. Visitors have stood still on the bridges, listening to these ghostly steps approach and fade away into silence. Such encounters are usually more mystifying than menacing, as if the spirits are simply going about their daily business. On quiet days, people have reported hearing faint voices carried on the breeze. Sometimes it's an indistinct whisper or a distant conversation that stops abruptly. Other times, specific words or a lone shout will emerge from nowhere. Given the village setting, one might imagine ghostly neighbors chatting or a far-off call of hello with no answer. Notably, some investigators claim to have recorded EVPs or electronic voice phenomena here. Snippets of spoken words on auto recorders when no live person was present. The voices range from murmured prayers in the church to a child's giggle near the schoolhouse, further adding layers to Billie Creek's mystery. Though rare, there are accounts of people seeing the full figure of a person, typically in periodic dress, startlingly clear and solid, only for the figure to disappear moments later. These vivid apparitions have been spotted inside buildings, often engaged in ordinary tasks. A woman in old-fashioned clothes browsing shelves in the general store, or a man in work overalls peering over out of the blacksmith shop door. One especially poignant sighting involved what looked like a small child in antiquated school clothes standing in a doorway, a scene that several people have reported independently. Such sightings have convinced many that each historic structure brought its own ghosts to Billie Creek Village. It is as if the village is populated by the spirits of the 19th century men and women and children associated with each building's former life. While ghostly activity has been noted all around Billie Creek's grounds, a few hotspots stand out for their frequent and compelling paranormal reports. These locations have become favorites for both local legends and formal paranormal investigations. The general store. By day, this big white store is the cheerful centerpiece of Billie Creek, but by night, it is known as a hotbed of hauntings. Visitors and staff have described unexplained noises and movements here after hours. Soft conversations have been heard when the store was empty, and objects like old tins or jars sometimes end up in different places without explanation. The most striking encounters are apparitions. More than one guest has claimed to see a figure through the storefront windows or inside by the counter when no one should be there. One vivid report described a gentleman in an old suit and bowler hat standing by the candy displays, who vanished as the witness approached. Another tale speaks of the phantom storekeeper, an older man in suspenders, seen fleetingly behind the counter, as if still tending to customers in the afterlife. These stories align with the general store's past. It was the heart of its original town, and perhaps some part of those bustling days imprinted itself here. Ghost hunters often focus their cameras and recorders in the general store, given how frequent it yields results. The store's atmosphere, steeped in history, seems to invite its long-gone patrons back for one more visit. Another alleged hotspot is the village schoolhouse. This humble one-room school may harbor one of Billie Creek's most famous ghosts. In the summer of 2017, a visitor snapped a photograph that later stunned everyone who saw it. In the photograph appeared to be the silhouette of a little girl standing inside the schoolhouse doorway, even though no living child was present at the time. The image, often dubbed the schoolhouse ghost photo, clearly shows a small figure in old-fashioned dress behind the screen door, and it became local news when the family who took it shared it with an Indianapolis TV station. The mother, Cindy Livingston, insisted that there was definitely no one physically standing in the doorway when her daughter took the picture. This chilling photograph lent serious credibility to the whispers of ghost children at Billie Creek. Visitors have also reported hearing the faint laughter of children and the sound of a wooden school bell or desk lid when inside the empty schoolhouse. Some investigators conducting overnight stays have left trigger objects like old toys or chalk on the desk, only to find tiny handprints or moved items by morning. The lore goes that a young girl from the 1800s may still linger there, eternally waiting for class to begin. Whether it's the spirit captured in that 2017 photo or another playful entity, the schoolhouse continues to be a focal point of the village's ghostly activity. Even skeptics have admitted to feeling a sudden cold presence or an unseen watcher in the room that once rang with children's voices. Dr. Rice's doctor's office, given its history as a place of healing and possibly of suffering, it's no surprise that the old doctor's office has an aura of mystery. Though fewer specific ghost sightings are documented here publicly, many who enter Dr. Rice's office report an uneasy feeling. Some describe it as a subtle pressure, as if they're never quite alone amid the antique medical instruments and weathered dentist's chair. A common report is the sensation of being watched from the back examination room or seeing a curtain flutter when there's no breeze. Ghost tour guides have noted that even skeptics grow quiet upon stepping inside. The atmosphere is heavy with the residue of life and death moments that must have unfolded in the 19th century within those very walls. One local legend claims that the spirit of a young patient who didn't survive a fever is sometimes seen peeking out the front window, perhaps looking for her parents. Another tale suggests that Dr. Rice himself makes rounds from beyond the grave, a figure in a long coat spotted briefly in the corner of one's eye. While these particular anecdotes are hard to verify, they fit the pattern of subtle, watchful hauntings at the doctor's office. And given the building's rich history, since Dr. Rice started his practice in Rockville in the late 1840s and served his community for decades, adds weight to the idea that strong emotional events left a mark. Investigators often include the office in their nighttime sweeps, using EMF detectors and spirit boxes in the hopes of contacting any lingering medicinal spirits. The covered bridges at Billie Creek are not only scenic, but undeniably spooky after sundown. Footsteps are the main claim to fame here. Many have testified to hearing the sound of someone crossing the bridge behind them, only to turn and find emptiness. The Billie Creek covered bridge, with its 90-foot enclosure of timber and the instruction to cross this bridge at a walk painted on its portal, seems to carry the residual energy of countless crossings. Paranormal enthusiasts note that bridges are often sites of superstition, and these are no exception. In addition to footsteps, people have caught fleeting shadow figures within the bridges, sometimes darting between the crisscrossing beams. One paranormal team set up a laser grid inside of a bridge and claimed to see a human-shaped outline briefly interrupt the pattern, as if an invisible figure had passed through it. Others recount hearing a whistling tune in the bridge, like that of a worker or traveler whistling to themselves, a sound that abruptly stops when you step inside. The acoustics of the covered bridges tend to amplify these unexplained noises, making the experiences even more unnerving. Interestingly, locals have their own bit of lore. Some say that during the village's early days, a visitor suffered a heart attack and died while crossing across one of the bridges. While this story remains unverified, it is often told to explain why that person's ghost might still be pacing there. And whether or not the tale is true, the covered bridges undeniably provide a stage for Billie Creek's ghostly foot traffic. Virtually every corner of Billie Creek Village has some paranormal story attached to it. In the quiet churches, for instance, a few investigators have felt sudden cold spots near the altars, or have recorded what sounds like an exacerbated sigh. One especially disturbing legend that has emerged, however, comes from the village's Union Baptist Church and has seemed to manifest in more recent years. And that is the rumors of a black-eyed demon said to lurk within. This tale caught fire after members of a well-known ghost hunting group claimed to encounter a malevolent presence inside the dark church late one night. According to their accounts, they saw a shadow with gleaming eyes and felt an overwhelming sense of dread, even oppression, leading them to dub it the black-eyed demon of Billie Creek. While such an extreme entity is outside the norm of the village's more peaceful ghost sightings, the story has spread wildly on social media and thus has added a demonic twist to Billie Creek's lore. Paranormal enthusiasts now approach the church with both excitement and caution, with some performing cleansing rituals before entering. Aside from that, the old Civil War era farmhouse at the back of the property has its own eerie vibe. People have described seeing a silhouette in the upper window of the farmhouse when it was entirely closed up. Even the rustic barns and sheds occasionally produce an unexplained bang or a phantom lantern light swaying, as if a long-dead farmhand was checking on the animals. In short, no part of Billie Creek Village is entirely free of spectral possibility, especially once the sun goes down. All these stories of apparitions and inexplicable happenings have drawn serious attention from the paranormal community. In recent years, Billie Creek Village has become a hotspot for ghost hunters, researchers, and curiosity seekers hoping to witness the supernatural for themselves. The village's caretakers have leaned into this trend, offering public ghost hunts and making it easy to book private overnight investigations on the property. Teams will often rent out the entire village from 7 p.m. until dawn, giving them free rein to set up night vision cameras in places like the schoolhouse, EVP recorders in the church, and motion sensors in the general store. These overnight investigations have yielded a growing list of eerie encounters, and some groups report classic hauntings. They capture disembodied voices on audio, orbs and unexplained mists in photographs, and occasional EMF spikes that suggest that something unseen is nearby. For example, one investigator claimed to record a child's voice giggling at the schoolhouse steps around 3 a.m., matching the village's child ghost lore. Others have obtained thermal camera images that seem to show human shapes with heat signatures in empty rooms, only for it to vanish moments later. However, not every encounter at Billie Creek has been benign. A few investigators insist they've come face to face with sinister forces on the grounds. One prominent YouTube paranormal channel had a particularly harrowing night that they later dubbed Trapped by the Black-Eyed Demon. In their video, they recounted how multiple team members felt suddenly ill, and one became unresponsive after provoking whatever lurks in the Baptist church. They claimed to catch on camera a pair of gleaming eyes in the darkness and heard growls echoing in the rafters. Another investigator described waking up from a nap in the governor's house to the sensation of hands pressing on her shoulders, pinning her down, with no one else in the room. While experiences of overtly hostile or demonic entities are not the norm at Billie Creek, such stories have circulated enough to add an extra layer of fear for thrill seekers. In most cases, though, visitors' scary moments are limited to the occasional feeling of being watched or a sudden chill, the kind of subtle phenomena that leave you questioning your own nerves. Before we go, I did want to share my thoughts with all of you from the outside looking in. My best guess is that if Billie Creek Village is indeed haunted, it very well could be because of the long histories of the buildings themselves that were transplanted there to create the concept of the town in the first place. But are the hauntings more residual, or are there intelligent entities lurking within, perhaps drawn by the energy of both the living and history itself? It certainly may be possible. With most haunted places I've visited, I have to say that there are more things that dwell within the darkness sometimes, more than perhaps you'd realize. And you might be surprised with who or what you end up talking to. Now, I do believe in demons or darker entities, although I feel like dealing with them is exceptionally rare. And I feel like I can say that with a good degree of confidence considering my recent visit to the Sally House. But given the sensationalism of the channels involved who have created and pushed this black-eyed demon narrative, I'm suspicious at best, which is basically reality TV with a paranormal twist. But as far as taking things seriously and not overly sensationalizing them or downright fabricating evidence, I wouldn't necessarily put it past them. Again, that's just my opinion. Obviously, form your own for yourself. And if you ever visit Billie Creek Village, go before sunset. Walk the gravel roads. Run your hand along the beams of the general store. And listen to the wind beneath the bridges. It might carry a whisper, a laugh, a name you recognize but shouldn't. When the shadows stretch long and the last tour ends, don't linger. The buildings may look empty, but they aren't. The schoolhouse still echoes with lessons not learned. The doctor's office still prepares patients who never leave. And the church waits for the door to be cracked just wide enough to let something out. They say the black-eyed demon still roams beneath the rafters, clinging to the bones of the land, like mold to stone. You won't see it, not at first, but if your flashlight dies, and your breath turns to ice. You'll feel it in your chest, and once you feel it, it remembers you. History was preserved in Billie Creek, but so were the dead. And in the heart of that quiet Indiana wood, the past is not dead. It's listening. Thank you guys so much as always for your patience with these new videos that are coming out. If you enjoyed this one, please like the video, subscribe, and leave me a comment letting me know your thoughts down below. Consider becoming a channel member by clicking join now here on YouTube, or a patron by visiting patreon.com/mysteryarchives to enjoy all of my content ad-free, plus some exclusives. You can also further support the channel by checking out my merchandise or books at mysteryarchives.myshopify.com. I can't say this enough, but I truly do appreciate all of you guys, and your support in this community really means the world to me. So thank you for being awesome. As always, this has been Cody here at Mystery Archives. Remember to please stay safe out there from supposed black-eyed demons or anything else that may be lurking in the shadows. And take care. I'll see you next time.